Hi, my name is Robin Eisenhower Stewart, and I first off want to say thank you for checking out my art videos and letting me know what you think by liking or sharing my work. So what I'm going to do is walk you through a speed video of this painting right here. So you will get to see how I approach artwork. I'm going to treat it a lot like how I teach my high schoolers to paint. So you will get to kind of understand excuse me, my process and how an artist really approaches their work. And if you're paying close attention, you can notice my children and my husband and my dog in it, because this is a small little family business that we do, and we're pretty proud of it. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Here you will see me getting paints ready on some palette paper. I like it because it's easier to clean. I'm laying in to get that kind of halo effect in the image that the client sent me. You'll see my son pop in a minute. I like to lay in with some thick oil paint brushes and then go back over with a really soft sable brush to blend it out. I had a great professor in college that taught me so much about oil painting, and I carry it with me forever. So thank you, Dr. Winter, so much. But here I am making the sky brighter and blending and blending and blending to get it very smooth and the way I want it before I move forward. As an artist, I like to work backwards to forwards. So I lay in the background and then I work towards the foreground. You will see right now I'm letting the sky dry. You can tell that I'm trying not to let the ground touch the sky so that the sky can set. Oil paints take about 3 months to dry, so that takes a while. But I'm basically laying in the foreground and trying to do what Dr. Winter called killing the canvas. I'm letting the white of the canvas be hidden by undertones of the foreground. I'm laying in the mountains that are barely seen in the image because I want them there. I want them present. This is a picture from Alexander County, North Carolina, a beautiful community nestled in the foothills. And mountains are a big deal. So trees are going to cover up most of the mountains, but the essence of them needs to be there. So you can see the beginning of using these tiny, tiny little minuscule brushes to get the effect of trees and foliage. You'll notice that I use a lot of different colors and a lot of different ways to apply the leaves. I'm constantly looking at the original image. That's one thing that my students really struggle with. You have to, when you're drawing something realistic, really do a lot of observations. You're a lot like a scientist recording your observations. And if you try to draw from your head, you'll lose the clarity and the realism of the piece you're trying to get. So I'm trying to get the tree line, but I'm also looking for where the shadows are. And foliage is a hard thing because there's lots of, there was Erickson again, lots of various colors in patches. I'm approaching these trees and the undergrowth knowing that this is not going to be completed within this passing. This painting itself took several months to complete, so this video you are watching is a compilation of days and days and days of work. So what I'm doing is just trying to get the gist of the undergrowth like I did on the foreground, but with a little bit more detail because you do want the sky showing through. There's my daughter. So you got to see Cersei. She is usually at a little artist easel behind where I'm standing. She has her own little artist table. So when the oil paints settle a little bit and kind of set up and thicken, you can go back and add more without it blending too much. So now you see me really pumping up the drama by adding some contrast of light hues and dark hues. Here came the really, really tedious part of laying in the wheat. And you'll notice that I don't just use one color. If you catch glimpses of the palette, you will see multiple shades of green. For all of the wheat, I used two different shades of green. I mainly used sap green and viridian. And then I used 2 different shades of yellow cadmium and yellow ochre to kind of neutralize those. But I also used raw umber and burnt sienna, which are 2 shades of brown for you non-art people, so that you can see all the different neutral shades. For the highlights, wheat has a very kind of seafoam quality. Somebody called. So I added some flake white to the palette as well. I like to have the image on my iPad. I used to print things out, but the iPad saves us on ink. And all I have to do is recharge the batteries, so it's a little easier. I mainly used brushes size 4, 2, 1, and 000 for the wheat. I like to make my brushes a little bit bigger in the foreground, just like how things look bigger closer to you, and smaller brushes further away to give that idea of atmospheric perspective. You can see I have it pulled up on my phone as well, so I get different views. Most of the time, you might even see my mouth moving, I was listening to Pandora, my Dixie Chick station, kind of channeling the mood that I wanted this painting to have, that inviting and open space. As things, going back to atmospheric perspective, as things go back into space, they get smaller, but they also don't have as much detail. So you'll see things are fuzzier at the back, really tiny, tiny, tiny little brush strokes, and then getting bigger and bolder and sharper images closer up. If you look closely, you'll kind of see by my left knee, you might have to go back a little bit to see it, but you'll see this big black blob and sometimes a tail, and that is our dog. He's usually not allowed downstairs at all, but he is terrified of thunderstorms, even with his little thunder shirt on. So instead of barking and waking up the children, we just let him come down with me, and it's a lot easier on everybody. So here you see me blocking off the main highlighted area of the wheat field that's in the sun. I'm trying to get the colors placed where I want them, and this is a part where I really had to paint and paint and paint, and my husband took care of the kids for a while because I needed to do it while it was wet so that it would blend and get the effect that I wanted in regards to texture and tone and highlight. So here you see me use a larger brush to lay in those big blocks of color, and now I'm using it's still small, but probably a size 2 brush to get the wheat on and the separation of the 2 main parts of the wheat field. Looking for the patches, I'm going with a very, very tiny brush to get the edge of the wheat field in now. You can tell the tone is much lighter. I get a little ADD and go back and add colors to the trees. At this point, I'm realizing that the original colors I used in the trees are not matching what's in the wheat field, and I'm really resisting that urge to redo the trees. I know in my artist head that I've got to plow on, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, with the wheat, or I'm going to get distracted and not be able to pick it up where I left off if I take a break from it. So you see me dab at the trees, and I'm like, no, Robin, get back to work. So here I am getting back to work on the wheat and thinking in my head the whole time, what colors am I using and where? And while I'm looking at the wheat and really working, especially on this front part that's right in the foreground on texture and layering over the wheat that's behind it to really get that 3D effect, I'm thinking, where do I see this particular shade in the trees? Where do I see this darker shade? What about these lighter shades? Because a big part of having a unified artwork is having colors that kind of reflect elsewhere on the canvas. So the trees are just too yellow and too dark, and I'm realizing these things, and I'm thinking ahead and planning how I'm going to approach those trees when the time comes. So now you'll see I'm going back and adding the little blades of grass with a really pale green, but I've also diluted it a great deal with some paint thinner so that it does give a nice effect. Now I'm going back and adding to the trees. I'm really using those same exact mixtures of colors that I perfected when tackling the wheat to make each tree look like the way it does in the photo, but also reflect the colors in the wheat field. And I'm not being lazy about the undergrowth like I was when I first started. So now I'm doing the little touch-ups at the bottom, making it so that I'm happy with it, which is hard for every artist. And I'm finalizing it. So I just want to say thank you again so much for supporting our business and watching my artwork.